Lynn asked us to present some things related to these current issues in Russia. What is life in Russia today? From my point of view, it's very complicated matter because Russia is a huge country. It's a federation of 89 regions, and each region has some features, different background, different geography, history, economy, and so on. And despite all, it's only 4 of us, but each of us present each own region. We are from different regions. However, let me just make some general observation from my personal point of view. Since the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, Russia made significant progress toward democracy and free market. Just one sample. The country has held 4 national elections and 1 constitutional referendum over the past 5 years. More, I guess, than in Montana and the rest of the United States. What I'm trying to say is that right now we are living in a free country. And other good news from Russia is the progress of free market system. Just one statistical parameter. Russia has privatized faster than any other of East European countries. And for the end of 1996, about 70% of all Russian workforce was employed by private companies. It means about 70% of Russian enterprises are under private control. Certainly, there are some positive changes and progress in Russia, but the main question is what the changes mean for ordinary people and how much did they pay for the freedom and democracy. And I would say the cost of the freedom, democracy, and capitalism is very high. For the most of Russians, last 5 years have been a painful experience. It's a threat of new civil war, losing a job, growing crime, the lack of food, and so on and so on. The real living standards have fallen too. And finally, for the most of Russians, it was tough, both physically and mentally, survive these last 5 years. Of course, we are free now. We have right to choose. We have right to elect, and our stores full of different kind of food and consumer. However, for the most of people, it was a time of different kind of changes. People could change their work. Like my brother, he used to work 30 years for one industrial enterprise, and now he just left this. He was forced by economical reasons to change his job and to go to another plant. And I wouldn't say that it's first time for Russia. People have hardship and different kinds of limitations. But I think we have 3 institutions that have been crucial for survival during the last years. First, it's the extended family. It's a strong element of the social security in Russia. Adult children almost always help their parents. Parents also help their adult sons and daughters, and so on. Second, it's private plot of land. There are about 50 million private plots in Russia, roughly 1 per household. In average, each has about 1/4 of a soccer field. These plots were key buffer against of harsh impact in the beginning of reform. For example, 83% of all potatoes, what we call second bread in Russia, grown in the country by 1993, were produced on private plots. And third institution is entrepreneurship. Despite 7 decades communist heritage, there has been an enormous shift to entrepreneurship. And it's not only because people had to manage things around to survive and support families some way. And a lot of people started to realize how it's nice to be free and to be free of sometimes stupid orders and instructions. And how it's great, to work for the future of their children and grandchildren. So, in other words, Russians did not lose the sense of entrepreneurship and freedom. Moreover, it was one of the reasons why communism system was destroyed in Russia. So it's the things what I would like to tell you, and I would say I'm really optimistic about the future of Russia, because we have everything to be a successful nation. We have great natural resources, very talented people, huge market that is not tapped yet. And what we need is good management and great entrepreneurship among people. And I think my colleagues, I don't like spend all the time only for me and my job. And my colleague Lucy Simonov, she will present some things related to this issue.
I am from Western Siberia, but I live there. Not in the exile, not in the exile, because I love this region very much. It's a huge territory, which takes the territory equal the space of 5 European countries. And it's the district of so-called gold rush, because it's the most rich oil producer and gas producer. It supplies more than 96% of natural gas of total Russian supply, and about 70% of oil production. And that is why, simultaneously, it's a district of big money, big crime as natural consequences, yes? And the district which has a very strong political coloration. I am teaching international business and international management. I am working simultaneously at the State University, Human State University, and I am administrator, I am deputy director of the Center of Continuing Education for Adults. Because the situation of transition demands to change the educational background of all Russian people. And as a result, we have a huge demand for different educational services. And we are trying to satisfy this huge demand for educational service. Usually our men say the ladies first, but virtually Russian women are accustomed to make a way for Russian men. It is rooted in a deep Russian patriarchal tradition, because we are accustomed that the man must be a superior, the first person in the family. And that is why Westerners, because I am the lone woman in this Russian team, Westerners very often ask me, do you have really equal rights with men? And usually I answered, unfortunately, yes. Yes, because many Russian women complained that we have too much equality. Too much equality. First of all, it connected with social expectations, because our traditional social role to be a good worker, to be involved in labor force. And in fact, in Russia, more than 92% of women in working age are employed or in school. And more than half of all labor force in Russia are women. We are accustomed to work very hard. And another social role, to be a good wife, to be a good mother, and to be a homemaker. And that is why usually Russian women to fulfill different social obligations and responsibilities in all social different levels. And as a result, she brings double or even triple burden of different obligations. For example, taken in Russia show that women spend on average 2 to 3 times longer on household tasks than men, and have 1.5 times less free time. According to typical working day, Russian women spend 7 hours additionally on home tasks, on home tasks, as compared with Russian men who spend just 1 or 2 hours a day. And besides, Russian women want to be a good professional. They are very well educated, and traditionally Russian women are barrier of moral and social values. What are the most important qualities for a Russian managing woman? In Russian perception, ideal woman manager has to possess 3 sets of qualities. First of all, respondents rating femininity, physical attractiveness, and charm in the top of qualities. You look that these qualities differ from traditional for West. And the second most important set of qualities includes competence and professionalism. And respondents put in third place the ability of women to deal with people. And in this quality, women are more successful as compared with men, because they are more flexible, they are more adaptive, and besides, as my personal experience shows, they are more successful in training. Because I have dealt with grown-ups training, and And I noticed that some managers, when they are going to train and come in my retraining center, these students, grown-up students, who are men, are sleeping very well. And are tired very quickly. But women are very eager and they are working very hard and struggling with all obstacles. Because the gold rule of Russian life and Russian traditions to overcome obstacles. Because all Russians are very strong in extreme situations. The gold rule is the birds fly better with the wind against their chests. And that is why our government is very successful. And that's all, maybe. Any questions? And I make a way. Another reporter?
Okay, dear friends, first of all, I would like to thank you for coming. And it's so nice to see a lot of people who are interested in Russia, in Russian life, what's happening in Russia. And actually, it's very nice. The most frequently I am asked by Americans two questions. First question is, please tell me when it was better, now or 10, 15 years ago in Soviet Union. And second question is what's happening actually in Russia and why nothing works in Russia which works in the West. So you make everything correct, but why nothing or almost nothing get out of here, of it? And actually the first question is easier, much easier. I usually say if in 2 words, now is better, but many people think differently, and many people say, especially if you will come to Russia, you will see many people on TV, on the streets, everywhere, who will say, oh, it was much better previously under the communists. And but don't believe to those people, because actually when they had a chance to vote for communists, not so many people did it. As so it's misleading. It's misleading also for Russian politicians, because Communist Party ran on last elections, and a leader of Communist Party who ran for president, he was sure he hear all these talks, and he was sure that he has victory in his pocket already, but it wasn't so. And people can talk everything, but when there is matter of choice, they will make a right choice all the time. So, or mostly. Actually, it's true that previous life was to extent better if we will take just material issues, salaries, money, etc., etc. And now there are many people extremely living in extreme poverty, and what is even worse, The most difficult problem in Russia is a problem with apartments, with living conditions, and many people don't have a place to live actually, or live in overcrowded apartments. Sometimes 2, 3, 4 families and more together in one apartment, and it was. In Soviet times, it was a chance to get, if you stand in line on your enterprise, for example, when you are 20, probably you will get your own apartment when you will be 40. So people had hope. Now it's almost impossible, and you just can buy apartment, but usual price is the same. Actually, probably in some places it's higher, for example, in Moscow than in America. And living standards is 20, 30 probably times less than in America. So for just common people, it's impossible to buy any apartment at all. What is, and you know, of course, that it's problem with salaries. Many people, most of people probably don't get low salary in a whole, or they couldn't get it at time. Sometimes enterprise pays 2, 3 months later, or half a year later. So a lot of problems. But anyway, now we have a chance to say what we really think. It's truth, and we can go somewhere. For example, 10, 20 years ago, just few people could travel abroad. Now a lot of Russians do this and have a chance to do this. I can say about myself that in previous time I hadn't any hope to come to America, and now I'm second time already in 4 years, in 3 years actually. So, and one thing is unexplainable. It's a kind of new spirit. So it's a kind of, in Soviet times, everybody knew what will happen next. What will happen next day, next year, next 10 years. So
Nothing.
it was absolute or almost absolute. I mean, for common people, almost absolute stability. Now nobody knows what will happen. You have a lot of choices, and the most problem we have now, it's a problem of choice. So Russian people didn't used to make a choice, and probably it wouldn't be so difficult, for example, this transition to capitalism for any other European country, for Americans, but it's difficult for Russians because we lived decades and decades, many decades, very differently. We didn't have to take any decisions, or almost any decisions, about life, and so I can say that now it's more alive, more diverse, and more interesting time to live. And I'm rather optimistic. I'm also optimistic as my colleague and friend Igor that everything will be fine in Russia. I'm sure. So I use a chance to invite you, if you will have a chance to go to Russia, I can say that go ahead, and you will have a lot of fun, and you will enjoy. And don't be afraid of criminals, mafia, and other stuff. What you hear about each day. Thank you very much.
if I understand correct, as to relationship between the generation,
Parents.
deep Russian tradition is very close relationship between generations. Between children never leave their parents and never. It happens, but as accident. As extreme case maybe. And in their turn, parents usually care for their children very long time. And that is why, as compared with the West, for example, I see the tremendous differences in the relationship between generations. But now we are growing new generation, and I see my students are more practical, more rational, more Western oriented, and that is why I'm afraid to predict. But traditionally, for example, for my generation, there are very close relationship between generations. And this relationship not just formal, just polite and so on. It's a really deep-rooted interconnections.
In this country, we seem to have trouble funding medical care for many of our people. 1 out of 4 children is without medical care. Would you talk about the medical care system in Russia as it was and what is happening now in 1997 with coverage for elderly, children, and so on?
It's real social tragedy. Because before we had real strong medical care, free medical care, secure medical care, and we were not so worried about what will happen and so on. But now, as usual case, all hospitals are very poor, without financing, without money. And sometimes we observe unethical medical practice from persons who just seeking big money, and that's all, because there is no perfect control for this system. But I cannot see the reasonable solutions, maybe.
Let me just add. Previously, I told that there are different regions in Russia, and living standards and medical system and medical treatment could be different in different parts of the country. As well, also Andrei told that everybody could have own point of view. So my point of view. You asked actually it's 2 questions about the system, medical system, previously, in the past, and now. So in the past, it was government medical system, and it was completely free. However, especially in the past, we could see some immoral things, because doctors and hospitals, they shouldn't charge people. But sometimes it was happen if people would stay in line for some special operation, and they pay probably some under-table money to doctors, and it wasn't Soviet. But now we are in transition. However, you could see the previous system, I mean free medical system in some regions. I am from the region, the Republic of Tatarstan. It's middle Russia, it's probably one of the typical and relatively stable and well-doing region in Russia. So I am living in big city, 1.2 million people, the city of Kazan. And it seems to me I never paid for medical treatment of myself and my family. Despite I have 2 children, and if you have children, you know that sometimes they have cough, they have some other things. I paid first time for the medical treatment here in United States because both my daughters with me. So now I know. So but however, in Moscow, that is almost like country in the country.
Yeah.
99% guarantee that you should pay for the medical treatment.
Especially in Moscow, yes.
And I would say each of 89 region now has different system of medical services. Like in Tatarstan, government paid most of bills, so it's almost free. However, what I said about the current time, it's related with 1996. We already 8 months here, and I don't know what's going on right now in my city. But you may find different things.
Can I add a couple of words also? First of all, I'm sorry, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Andrei Nekrasov. I'm from Yaroslavl. It's 200 miles to the north from Moscow. Very nice, old, beautiful city. And I'm teaching at the university at home, and here I'm visiting scholar in history also. And a couple of words about medical treatment. Actually, for people, there is no very big difference in medical treatment because even now it's almost free. So you have a choice. You can go to free clinic, or you can go to physician whom you should pay. And many people think that if you will pay, it will be better. But not all. It doesn't depend on money actually. It depends. I always think that it depends on doctor. It depends on physician. It depends on his knowledge, skills, abilities, and attention to people. So we have wonderful doctors who you wouldn't pay, and he will make everything for you, everything what he could, and some you can pay, and also you don't know whom you pay because you don't know. It's a private practice. Who he is and where he was educated, and is it a doctor or just kind of ordinary people? I don't know. And I usually, by myself, I usually don't pay and go to a state clinic and where it's free. And on my experience, I used treatment for payment. Also, I couldn't say that free is worse. So.
As for me, maybe the last one. I've never paid for medical treatment in my country. It was always free, but I'm afraid that in future something will change. And for the first time I paid not for my treatment, but for filling medical form. Just before going here, I was to fill a special form about my state of health. And I went to polyclinics as usual, and they told me you are to pay. And this was the first chance I was paying. Well, that's all.
I have a twofold question for all of you. You've mentioned the importance of family and the gathering together to support each other. Yes? This is a very deep tradition of the Russian people. With the current geographical redistribution of population, many people are moving throughout the former Soviet Union. First part of the question is, do you see people going back to their roots, going back to Yaroslav or going back to Kazan or going back to the place where their family is from so that they can support each other.
It depends.
So it's really depends, I agree. However, what I would say about migration in Russia, actually it's a matter of migration in former Soviet Union. The biggest migration flow of people, inflow to Russia from former Soviet Republic, like Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, mostly Muslim republics. So we call them Russian-speaking population. It doesn't matter, they could be Jewish people, they could be Ukrainian, whatever. And destination, what they're going, actually it's parents, brothers, sisters, so who
Some
could support for
relatives,
the
friends.
beginning. This is real true. But I wouldn't say that it's too much migration between cities. Actually, as I realize, as I understand free market system, it's important to have migration between labor markets. It's kind of stabilization of economy, but we have not yet developed infrastructure like housing, medical system. So it depends from for your family living in the same city, and you know doctors, you know people in school, in university, so on, so on. So
Opportunities to get job.
So-
I probably can answer your question too. I'm an immigrant and I live here for 6 years. And I came from Ukraine, and I'm professor of the university in Ukraine. And I'm familiar with this situation because I'm Russian and I live in Ukraine. I was born there. And I know that many people left Ukraine and they came to unite with their family in Russia. I'm familiar with this situation. Some people coming back and try to prove their citizenship in Ukraine. It's very difficult. Even when they were absent for 1 year, they cannot come back and start, I don't know, not start, just to continue their life there. It's difficult. But I'm familiar with this process. It's going on. And many of my friends also, they said that they prefer to move somewhere to their roots too, because political tension is hard for many people. You know, when they call you occupant or something like that, it's really difficult. They want to go.
Finally, it's the only stable thing in Russian life. The personal contacts, the personal network.
The second part of my question has to do with professional associations. You belong to a writers' union, a teachers' union, a farmers' union, and there is a pre-Soviet tradition also of associations. And I'm wondering, in your experience in living in different areas, are these associations still of any benefit as a support system, support network? And is there any resurgence of kind of cooperative movements among different, not family members, but say professional associations or neighborhoods or communities?
Perhaps let me this time start, be the first. And it only just occurred that I'm the only who didn't specify the place where I am from. Well, and let me start from this. I'm from Arkhangelsk. This is Russian North. Professionally, I'm a historian. I teach there at the university. And I can say only about historians as far as my profession is concerned, my discipline is concerned. As far as I know, we still have any association of historians. There were certain attempts undertaken in Moscow, and personally I attended one meeting 2 years ago. It was presided by, as far as I remember, academician Volobuyev in Moscow, Institute of History, and there was an attempt to establish such an association. But everything depends on funding. Any association must have sources, material sources. And what can historians suggest and how they can fund their association? That was the main problem. And as far as I know, nothing came out of this idea, sadly. Well, I don't know how about your specialty and your associations. That's all what I wanted to say
It
about
doesn't
my
matter.
specialty.
It doesn't matter what specialty
The
and
same.
so on. But I know that it's very dynamic process of creation of different professional association, because it's the very influential and strong part of different networks and contacts. And recently, some professional association, not-profit association, organization arise in banking affairs, in production sphere, in business, different. And moreover, now we observe a deeper specialization of different professional association. For example, initially so-called the round table of Russian businesses. It's the name of professional association existed in Russia. And for example, such association as the Union of all oil producers. But now the specialization is deepening, and side by side with this organization, new professional association arise. For example, the Oil Association of Oil Producers, the Association of Oil Exporters, and so on, so on, so on. Some of them have very strong political influence and includes some representatives of Russian government as the members of these organizations. And that is just one practical advice. If you want to do business in Russia, you need to act through professional associations. It's a real way to be successful in doing business in Russia. And totally, there are more than 50 professional, very strong, very strong professional association in Russia today.
So I could make my, I could share my point of view, my vision of professional organization. It's a little bit different, but I see people like to ask.
Oh, I can bring up my question after you share your perspective.
Okay. I think we should divide economical association like producers and exporters and professional association. And I really like your question because I used to make a presentation in Canada in one of Canadian universities in 1995, and topic was about investment in Russia. And the problem is people don't trust any financial institution and so on and so on. And one professor, he told me that probably a good idea to start local investment through association of people, professional association or religion group like around church and so on and so on. I would say my answer on your question, they should be and they could be, because in the past everything was funded by government, like Andrei told, no money now. So now we need this association, professional association, like to find job, to help with different kinds of academical research and so on and so on. So I would say I could predict real future for such professional affiliations, because we have good model like different kinds of, let's say it's a matter of licensing. My wife, she is a professional engineer, but in Russia she got a degree in professional engineering. It's enough to start to work. But in America or in Canada, in North America, you should go to apply for a professional association to get license. So it also great point to get a job and to get recognition through professional affiliation. So it's coming, it's transition period from the professional organizations that completely funded by government to professional organizations that like union people who could do something together in their field. So it's my point.
And I will add some words. We have in Yaroslavl Historical Association. It's a society of native history. But no, what about support? No, I doubt there is some association, professional association in Russia, which gives you some support. Mostly, it used to be in Russia and Soviet Union that all trade unions, associations, etc., were different kind of state organizations. So they just could take money from you, not to give you, or any kind of support. So we just paid kind of money. It was necessarily not a big money, but I didn't see personally association who could give some support to people who need the support. So our Society of Native History is just historical association. They give presentations, they organize different conventions, and that's all. That's all. No, they couldn't give any help. So.
And it doesn't go beyond Yaroslav, only in Yaroslav.
Yes. But I think in many big cities there are such societies of native history. So
maybe in Archangel we have the same. I don't know. I should also say something, but maybe not in particular this problem, but in general about information about Russia here in this country, to share with you some of my observations. I think that here in this country you have great opportunities to get, if you wish, any sort of information about Russia. And I, first of all, through the internet sources, it's a very valuable source, and here you can see www.russiatoday.com. Here is daily information, first-hand information about Russia, all spheres of life of Russia. And also, I should say that your papers, newspapers, in general, give rather good information from my point of view, quality newspapers. And it was striking for me. It's a kind of a, well, it was astonishing for me experience to find in your local newspaper, the Misulian, last month, an article, the whole page devoted to my native town, Arkhangelsk. Well, and this article was presented me kindly by Professor Freskil, who is here with us, and I even perhaps have it with me. This, the whole page. Freezing up nose. Well, of course, facts which are presented here, these articles by, who is also Associated Press correspondent Dave Carpenter, are awful. This of the starvation of my people here, but at least I get this information about my native town here in America. While it's very difficult for simple letters, still for mail, it takes about, I don't know how much, but about 3 weeks letters per avion from my native town to get me, to reach me. And in newspapers I get most more operative information.
Could you share with us a little bit about the churches, the way, the numbers and the freedom perhaps to worship that used to be the case during the time of the Soviet Union, and now what it is, what you are seeing as far as churches being able, are they growing, or what's the situation in churches?
To historians,
Okay, I can begin with this problem. Yeah, you know probably that it wasn't very good situation in Soviet times with churches, and I couldn't say that in the whole 70 years or more of Soviet rule, it was always bad. It was like a wave process and waving, and sometimes it was worse, sometimes better. Actually, situation changed every probably 10, 15 years, from freezing to thaw and back. And first churches were closed, then government began to open the churches, then closed again. And it didn't matter on kind of regime, because under Lenin, for example, it was a difficult situation with churches, and it began this time severe fighting against religion, against churches, and it grew until probably the end of 30s, and many churches were ruined in 30s. But from the end of 30s, it began a thaw, and in the war time in 43, Patriarch was restored ahead of Russian Church, so Patriarchate, and Stalin began to give some privileges to church, and it wasn't bad this time, and it was in late 40s and through 50s. In 60s, under Khrushchev, who is not the most totalitarian, who wasn't the most totalitarian ruler, it began again severe campaign against churches, very strong campaign against. And after this dismissal of Khrushchev and Brezhnev, it was so-so. So churches were open, not all of them, but some churches in every city, and people went there, and nobody prevented. But it was matter if you were a member of Communist Party, it wasn't approved. So you couldn't, you can go, but it's better for you not to go. But people who were out of party, it was fine, you can go to the church. And now situation is different, and there are a lot of churches, and many churches opened now, new opened, and there is a collision between preservation museums and churches, because many churches became museums. And now churches want to, communities want to take churches from museums, and museums don't want to give these buildings. And there is a kind of compromise very often. When there is service on holidays, or for example 1-2 days a week, and at the same time it's museum, so other days people can go, pay money and go to see inside, like the museum. So it's difficult situation, I don't know. Now it's a kind of rush. It became fashionable again to go to the church, and we can see all the government go to the church, and they enjoy this. You can see on TV that if a new governmental building is open, so they invite priests to make service in this place, in this building. So it's it's a kind of contrast. But I don't think it's just a kind of populism from high officials. It's not actually religious feelings. So and I don't think that as for a general public, many people go to church now. Many people. I don't know if all of them are sincere about religion, but I think that it's getting more and more people who are true believers. So it's kind of process.
Reverse.
Yeah, reverse
We
of
have,
the church.
Mormon church, there are different kinds of church like you have in America, even Mormons. I was really surprised to know that. And it's free because before, from what I know, you talk about Orthodox church mostly.
Yes, I most.
But
I'm sorry.
Protestant religions were forbidden, really. And my grandfather was a Baptist priest, and he was persecuted all his life. And 12 his children died, and they almost they starved them. Anyway, it was really hard time. But now everything, you can do everything what you want to do. And and many people are Mormons.
And there are also many foreign missionaries now in Russia who also try to
Convert.
yes, to convert atheists, those atheists into true faith, but they now are met with very cool attitudes from the official church. You understand this? Well, and of course, the Russian Orthodox Church doesn't like it. Well, and tries to stop this process of penetrating these foreign missionaries into Russia.
The Russian Orthodox Church, does it have any support from the state at all or not? Or at this point, I'm sure it never.
I think it has. I think it has. It's not open, this information. I couldn't say for sure, but Russian Orthodox Church used to be for several centuries already a part of the state. So they have. I'm sure that they have support from the state. And state also has support from the church if it's necessary to convince people to do something. It's close cooperation between church and the state.
Religion is very important part of spirituality, and the fact that we were not allowed to go to church, it's terrible disaster in spiritual life in Russia, and now it's restoring. I think it will be a very good result.
More choice, anyway. Good, thank you.
It's a matter of fact that many Orthodox priests were connected in Soviet times with KGB, with intelligence.
That's why we have about, I believe, 25 different Russian Orthodox churches all over the world. Even in the United States, there are 4 Orthodox churches, like White Guard Orthodox Church, that most Orthodox, and so on. And what I like to add something on your question about support of Russian churches. From my experience, what I know in my region, so there are 2 main religions in my region, Muslims and Orthodox. And there are business people who like and who really do support to both of these churches. It even doesn't matter, is it Russian entrepreneur or Tatar entrepreneur, they just like to make some donations, and they just like to support, to help with rebuilding, with repairing of old buildings. So it's from my point of view, it's good sign. And what I noticed that despite of 7 decades of Soviet and communist time, people, ordinary people, they respect church. Communists, they try to replace church by something, like, I don't know, moral, communist moral, whatever, but it didn't work. And what really works, it's church, it's my point of view. People really like to go. I could see many young people coming to church, and it's also good sign.
And now, just one word more. Just one phrase. We have now in our university in Yaroslav a close cooperation with church also, with Orthodox Church. So we have kind of conventions where church priests are present and make presentations, and professors of university also. And we have some courses university courses which are delivered by priests about history of church. So I think it's very good and it's very useful because our students know very few things about church, about its history, and about different churches. So it's very good.
Ladies first.
You may have been answered by the questions regarding medical care. When I was sitting here thinking about the focus, at least for people who can, women who can, to achieve professional educations, I was wondering how the status of choice regarding reproductive health care and family planning is over in Russia, like say in relation to traditional values. And I was just curious what the situation is like, at least for the women who are able to make, if there are more choices for the women there who are able to have professional careers in relation to family planning or reproductive health care.
Usually Russian women is between two fires.
Between what?
Two fires. Fires. To educate herself, and to care for family, to care for house. And it's difficult choice. But nevertheless, they prefer to be educated. And some polls show it that when women were asked, would you like to leave your job if your husband would earn double income instead of your job? They refused to leave their jobs because they are feeling the need in professional growth, in self-actualization, and usually they are more interested in socializing persons as some homemakers. But in this transitional period, women refused to have baby. During Soviet period, it was normally when family has 2 or 3 children. But now it's usual case that Russian family has just 1 child. Chinese say it's Chinese conventional wisdom, then the best punishment for every person to live in transitional period. And now we are in transition.
Royce says opportunity.
And values.
Thank you.
And Russians are always under punishment because we had transitional periods all the time. From one point to another and then back and to one side to another side.
Well, and let me share my personal view on this point, why this situation still is preserving, that we can't find our shore, our stability, because from my point of view of a historian, this is the result of intermediate geographical position of Russia, which is neither Europe nor Asia, and it's always in a state to one shore or to another, to Orient, to East or to West, and that's why in Russian politics always there is 2 trends, the so-called Slavophiles and Westerners, and original Russian tradition is tradition Oriental, influenced by the Mongols during those periods, well, when this autocratic regime was first established. But then Westerners appeared who tried to impose this transition towards democracy, and Russian society wasn't entirely happy with their attempts because many people still consider that previous rule, I mean not only communist but also Tsarist autocracy, this continuity in Russian history, it's very important, this problem. Well, maybe I'm not just answering your question, but just spontaneously trying to share with you, as a historian, my thoughts about this problem. Why Russia is also always in a transitional period constantly, because there is initially this duality in Russian society, in Russian history, and it's a kind of our heritage, historical heritage, and we can't overcome it still now. This is my point.
If I could ask a question to follow that up, and please don't answer if you don't feel comfortable answering, and that is the current political struggle, shall we say, between the expansion of NATO further east and the recent supposed rapprochement between the Russian government and the Chinese government. Is this an indication, perhaps, of what you were suggesting has been this historical tennis match?
A kind of attempt to make a counter step towards this expansion. Well, you, I think, can quite understand that present Russian government feels itself quite uneasy in this situation when NATO, this alliance, approaches to the Russian border, and it's quite understandable from psychologically, even from Russian point of view. And I think that it's not a chance that even in the Russian State Duma, all factions are now united. This is a unique chance. This is a unique position when communists as well as the so-called Westerners and Democrats are united in their negative attitudes towards this NATO approach. Well, and I think that it's even significant that even in the American politics there is an opinion expressed by, as far as I know, I've heard it or read somewhere, George Kennan is against NATO expansion. This specialist in politics that he considers to be a kind of a mistake. Maybe it's at least I think that all these arguments are worth consideration, at least. Well, maybe needn't to be in so hurry. Well, and to wait first all advantages and disadvantages of this step. Well,
yeah, I was going to, if I may interject, mention Kennan, who is I regard as one of the greatest authorities in America on Russia and things Russian. And his point is that if one views this whole process from the perspective of Moscow or Kazan or Yaroslav, it looks much more threatening perhaps than it does from our perspective. Mm-hmm. And he's a very astute observer, and he's voiced his concern in print, and it seems to be a minority point of view. I wanted to ask one question, if I may. It changes the subject completely, but I'm very interested in your personal observations or comments on the what we read to be an enormous amount of environmental and ecological damage that has been inflicted on your country and on your land and your water and your air and your people, ultimately, by 7 decades or more of Soviet rule. I read recently that this source is authoritative, that there are somewhere in the neighborhood of 800 nuclear waste sites in your country, including, I read, in Gorky Park in Moscow. I'm wondering, first of all, if this is a correct assessment, if the problem is as serious as we read it to be, and if so, how in God's good name are you going to find the money to repair this damage without a global assistance? It seems to me, ultimately, if the problem is as severe as I as I think it is, it's a problem that goes far beyond Russia. It's a global issue. I'm curious to know what your own thoughts and observations might be in regard to this very serious problem.
So let me start. I think there are a lot of speculation about environmental damage, what was done in former Soviet Union. However, I probably personally, I don't know, I didn't see any serious academic studies made in Russia about real scale of this damage. For sure it was, because former Soviet Union, it was huge industrial power, and each power, it's unfortunately the progress related with some damage to nature and environment. However, let me just to move a little bit from the ecological issues in Russia to situation here in America. Not my first coming to United States, but I never stay like 8 months. And what I discovered in one of the most beautiful places in United States, I traveled here from the state of Maine to state of Hawaii, so I could compare. And if I recall the people around me in Kazan and here in Missoula, I see lots of people who are sick with cancer and asthma.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to me asthma and cancer. Cancer and asthma. So it's consequences of bad environment. I would say around people, around me, people in my city, it's big industrial city, chemistry, defense industries, lots of them.
So it's really global problem.
Yeah, it's global problem.
Not
It's
national problem.
It's not national problem, but I would say I'm surprised to see lots of people with such serious diseases.
Yeah.
Like lots of kids here, my daughters, they attended school, and among classmates, a few of them, they have asthma. Like in classes of my daughters in Kazan, we don't have anyone with asthma. It's probably personal comparison, but I told you that I don't hear about serious comparative studies, because always American asked about environment. I traveled across Montana this winter with economic outlook seminar, and always somebody asked about environmental issues in Russia. So now I feel not so secure here in America because I see this like my neighbors. She also visiting professor. I don't like to say about her name and so on, but she got cancer here. So it's like it seems to me it's serious problem here. So we need more studies. It's serious global problem, and we need to see more studies.
If I could interject just a brief answer, the Russian Academy of Sciences and the Geography Division, academicians like Gerasimov and Rabchikov and so forth, have written extensively, even during the Soviet period, and more recently, and as participants in the IGU, International Geographical Union, there is a considerable amount of studies and comparative work regarding specific pollution problems. Arkhangelsk and in the north, there is a consortia between Sweden, Norway, Finland, and Russia to work on specific problems. The Norwegians are funding it, the Swedes are also providing some of the expertise, and this has to do primarily with nuclear wastes and things like that. So there are specific cooperations going on between specific parts or regions of Russia and other countries.
I'd like to, Jim, I think you have had your hand up for a while. If you still have a question, take one more and then we'll give our panelists a break. Although I'm sure they'll stay around for more personal questions if you have them.
Thank you.
Sure.
Here in America, we have a constant struggle to provide enough money for education at all levels. And I'm wondering, what is the status of funding for education at all levels?
The lowest possible. It's a lower any imagination.
It's very bad, unfortunately. I mean, the funding of education, because we still have good educators, good professors, you know, but they are forced by economical factors to go to business, to banks, you know, whatever. They could get some money to support family and themselves. And I'm really worried about educational system in Russia, because in Soviet time it was one of the real achievement of the system, that Soviet system of education was not so bad. And I could see, it's my colleagues, all of them graduated from Soviet universities, and from my point of view they are really good in their fields. So, but now it's, I completely agree with Andrei, it's really down, you know.
Well, they in Russia still have education free, and this is a problem for especially institutions, because they absolutely are dependent upon funding from, yes, on federal level. And as far as these economic difficulties goes on, this decline of industrial production goes on. So taxes are not collected, and state can't allocate only funded for the education. So, and maybe students are still happy because they do not pay for their studies, but professors, teachers suffer that they do not get their wages. And this is the problem now.
I think that the problem is that at least in Yaroslavl, I don't know about other cities, big firms, private enterprises don't give any money to education. And if it was so, a kind of charity from big corporations, it would be much easier, because big corporation can give very easily some money which could be very helpful for educational organizations. So, because state couldn't, of course, and doesn't want to fund all education. So, we have also private schools, but they're also not in a very good condition, as far as I know. And some private schools are closed because of lack of money.
Paradoxically, but there is some sort of gap, some sort of contradiction between very low social recognition of educational status now and personal concerns of some parents how to educate their children. Because I noticed that our parents are very worried how to give for their children a good education. And our parents are struggling to arrange with some different schools to get education for their children. For example, I noticed that American children are not so busy as our Russian children, because my daughter, for example, visited usual secondary school, and at the first half of her working day, and at the second half of this day, she visits some specialized school.
Musical or
in art or
dancing.
in something else. Yeah, dancing, ballet, and something else. That is why we consider education as a very hard job like our job for grown-up. And they are working very hard with education, and our educational program are more complex, maybe, and more difficult for our children. And it's contradiction of transitional period. Very low social recognition, social status of education, but tremendous efforts to get a good education for children from personal parents.
Well, thank you very much.